Welcome back from the break, folks. So now we will be diving into our last modules, Module 4 and Module 5. Module 5 will be around conversational AI, right, bots. And after that, we'll do a recap of the entire course, what we learned today, what we discussed today. And then, you're free to go to do all the exercises that I haven't done yet. I haven't demoed yet. There's still a lot there in the Visual Studio Code space. So with that, let's get started with Module 4. And in this module, we're going to look at natural language processing, also called NLP. It makes it a little bit easier. And we'll start with an introduction, and then we'll go into, natural language processing services in Azure. And we'll take a look at those. We'll take a look at text analytics, speech recognition and synthesis, translation, and language understanding. But first, let's look at these words, right? Natural language processing. What is it? Because we have language processing, right? We have programming languages like Python or C# or Ruby, you name it. And you can type a sentence and you can execute the code, and the computer will understand it. But the thing is, the difference here between natural language processing and normal language processing is that a programming language has to be precise. If I make a typo, it will not work. All the developers here can absolutely agree with me, hopefully. And natural language is something else, right? Because it has a large vocabulary, there are words with different meanings, there are accents, dialects, wordplay, and many other things. So that's really the difference here. And that's what we're talking about if we're talking about natural language processing, really how we do language. Now, what are some of the areas in AI? Well, we have text analysis and entity recognition, where you need to analyze a text document and you need to find out the important points of the important persons mentioned in that in the text document. So even dates or places could also be, right? And then you can do text analysis, entity recognition to collect those. And an example here would be a company that would do this to analyze industry magazines to see, where are they mentioned or when are their products or executives mentioned. The second one is sentiment analysis, which actually fits this example perfectly because it is a form of text analysis that calculates a score of indicating how positive or negative a text extract is. And in the case of a company that has that searches through these industry magazines, so every time it finds that it's being tagged or some of the products are there in that magazine, it can also check the sentiment of that magazine. So they can investigate how are they being perceived, right, in a positive or a negative daylight. Another example here is a company, has products and it gets reviewed, and then they go through the reviews with the sentiment analysis to see what the average is. And a very common example here is Twitter. And you can go to Twitter and then see the sentiment there of some subjects. Speech recognition and synthesis. So it is increasingly common to encounter AI systems that can recognize spoken language. Right? It's becoming really, really normal. An in-car system, right? You have this hands-free communication because it can read incoming text messages aloud to you, and then you can dictate a response verbally. Or the voice assistant is another great example here. Machine translation. Often there are language barriers if you have international or cross-cultural teams. And eliminating those is a key to success. And, being able to translate it into different languages is very important, right? There is some spoken language, and then you automatically get spoken language in a different language back. Or an email, or there was, in an inbox, you can automatically translate messages, or a transcript. So someone speaks in, for instance, Japanese, and you just see a transcript below the meeting in English. And machine translation. And then we have semantic language modeling. So because language can be complex and nuanced, and multiple phrases might mean the same thing. So where can I get gas near here? If you're looking for, you're almost out of gas and you're driving your car. And it can be the same as what's the location of the closest gas station, or give me directions to a gas station, right? All mean the same thing. And you need a semantic understanding of the language that is being used to see what the driver in this case would need. Right, so it really depends on the situation where we're in. Every job has its own language almost, right? So that is semantic language modeling. And if we're looking at the services that we have in Azure, of course, we have our cognitive services. And within the cognitive services, we have text analytics, speech, translator, and language understanding. Now, you can build your own custom NLP models. Absolutely. You can use machine learning, some toolkits. You can use Python, probably other languages as well, but I would really recommend Python. But it's a very complex area. And it will take you a lot of time. You will need the expertise. So why not use something off the shelf that helps you develop your solution way more quickly, and you don't need all the expertise behind it. Right, so in cognitive services related to text analytics, we have the language detection, key phrase extraction, entity detection, and sentiment analysis. And I'll have a short demo on this shortly. We have for speech, we have text to speech, and speech to text, speech translation. And for translator text, we have text translation. And for language understanding, we have the custom language modeling. And we'll get to all those in a minute. So let's start with a little demo here. So you can do this demo yourself at home at aidemos.microsoft.com/textanalytics. So let me just copy this and put it in a browser. So I'm entering this slideshow here and entering it. I already have it here, so I can see it here. aidemos.microsoft.com/text-analytics. Pressing enter here. And it will load this text analytics demo environment. And then you can enter anything you would like. Enter your message here. There's already an example here, but let's do something else. Let's type Microsoft has the AI Fundamentals course, which is a great way to learn the foundation of AI. How about that? So next step, let's see some sentiment and key phrases. The algorithm finds it, and you see here on the right, it's 89% positive, and you see some key phrase here. Microsoft AI Fundamental Scores, Foundation of AI, great ways. So they're highlighted in blue. Next step, we're linking some entities. So we're going to link them to Wikipedia pages. Here, if I click it on AI, you can see it brings me to the page of artificial intelligence. So that works. But I can also just list it below by Bing entity search, and then it provides me relevant information here at the bottom. Nice, right? Okay, so that's a super easy demo, but it really shows you the power behind it, right? Let's try some other sentences. Let's do natural language processing is the area of AI that deals with making sense of written and spoken language. How about this? Okay. You can see now at the right, 91% positive. Interesting. Natural language processing is highlighted. Area of AI is highlighted. Sense of written and spoken language, you see that highlighted as well. So let's do some entity linking, and let's see if it does natural language processing. Let's see if it does it correctly. Does it bring me to the right page? And yes, it does. So it works. Great. And we're going back. Okay, and then a Bing entity search and provides me this relevant information. Okay. Start over. Now let's take this the common sentence here, right? Saturn is the sixth planet, etc. Please clicking next step, and you can see here Saturn, solar system, Jupiter, gas giant, etc. So there's a lot of entities here. Let's see if it finds them all. Yeah, you can see a lot of here: solar system, Jupiter, Sun, Earth. Next step, Bing entity search, and you can see all this right here. And this just uses this natural language processing, uses sentiment analysis, key phrase extraction, entity linking, and in a very simple demo, right? So let's go back to the slides. So let's continue with the second part of this module, that is really using natural language processing services. Let's take a look at each one of them. So the first one is text analytics. And as the name suggests, it is used to analyze text documents. For example, you use the text analysis services to recognize the text, "I had a wonderful vacation in France." And then the service itself, they can determine the language that the text is written in. So it will probably say predominant language, English. Next up, the service, and we had 4, remember? It can evaluate the sentiment of the text. So let's see what a sentiment analysis does. 88% positive, because wonderful, huh? Seen as a positive thing. And the third one is it can detect key phrases. So what would be the key phrase here? Wonderful vacation. And the last thing, this is entity recognition. And well, my guess is that France would be an entity here. And indeed, it correctly identifies France as an entity. Yeah, so really a simple example of text analytics. Now, when we're looking at speech recognition and synthesis, it's a bit different. The speech service provides a speech-to-text API that you can use to implement text recognition functionality. And this service supports text transcription in more than 60 languages. And conversely, the text-to-speech API can synthesize audible speech from text, which with the option to specify regionally appropriate voices for human-like pronunciation. That's the other option. So that's really speech recognition and synthesis. Now, when we're talking about translation, the translator text service enables you to translate text between more than 60 languages. So bonjour to hello. And you can also translate audible speech by using the speech service. And then it has the ability to produce translated output in text or audio format. So you say hello and you get hola in return. And then we're talking about language understanding. And this is also, by the way, known as LUIS. It enables you to train a language model that can interpret natural language commands. So an example here would be switch the light on. And in language understanding, there are 3 things that you have to remember: utterances, entities, and intents. Utterances are phrases that a user might say. Switch the light on, turn the fan off, turn the fan on, turn the heater off, etc. That is an utterance. And an entity is a specific item that is referenced in an utterance. And let's talk about, like, we're doing a home automation here. We're trying to make everything automatic, and we just can say switch the light on, and then the light switches on. An entity in this example would be a light, or a fan, or music. Voice assistant, turn the music on. Could also be something. So then light or fan are entities. So utterances and entities, and the last one is the intent. Because what do we want to do with it? What is our intention? And the intent identifies the desired action for an utterance. So let me just show you a couple of demos here. So I'm still on this side, and let's go to aidemos.microsoft.com/Lewis/demo. And here we are. And now it states, there you see a house, make a statement about lighting and Lewis, and I can either type something or I can say something. So you can see that there are some lights are on and some lights are off. And let's see, because I haven't tested this yet, call Batman. Let's see what it does. And there you go. See? Hey, call Batman. So just a very short and short demo of how this works. And you can also type something here, or just or click one of the examples here. And then you can see that indeed it processes the language and then performs the actions. Just a very short demo. Okay. With that, let's go to another lab at aka.ms/learnlewis. Okay, and here we are in the exercise, create a language understanding application. And if I now go to notebooks, remember we've already cloned the GitHub repository. Now I just need to select the appropriate exercise, which is language understanding. And here we are. Okay, so in this exercise, we are going to create a language understanding. So let's do this first. Language understanding. Let's go towards the portal. I'll select the AI Fundamentals resource group. I'll click the Add button, and then I'll do language. And luckily it already auto-completes it for me, so that saves me a little bit of time. And let's create it. My subscription and resource group are already there. And now I just need to give it a name. So AI Fundamentals Language. That is still free, so that's good. Now I need to select a location for both the authoring and the prediction. Well, of course, since I am from the Netherlands, we're going to take West Europe. And here also West Europe. Okay, awesome. Next, I'm going to review and create. Looks all good. So let's create this. So while this is validating, we'll only take a couple of seconds to deploy. Let's go back to the exercise. Make sure you choose the free tier. So if you were observant, you saw that I chose the standard tier. Because I cannot have too many free tiers running at the same time. So for me it was the standard tier, but you can just go for the free tier. Okay, now then we need to create a language understanding application. And we're going to do this in a new browser tab. So don't click on this lewis.ai, but do a right click and then open in a new tab. And then we're going to create something called Home Automation, which I'll copy right away. And we're going to give it the language understanding prediction resource. So right click here, open new tab. Okay, I'll log in. It will ask for my credentials, and it already knew these. So here we are. Okay, I'll need to choose a subscription, which is my Azure internal subscription. Choose an authoring resource. Here we go. Okay, and then I'll create a new app for conversation. What was the name again that it wanted me to give? Oh, wait, yeah. Home Automation, Culture English. So go back here. Home Automation, Culture English. I give it a description here. Yeah, just a description. And here I choose the AI Fundamentals language. I'll press done. And here we are. Now, of course, there is a little bit of a walkthrough here, but let's close this for now. You can do this when you're exploring this in your own time. And now we have something here. You see on the left side, intents, entities, pre-built domains. Now go here. Create an entity, create, and I call it device. It's a list. Press create. And we have created our first entity called device. Under normalized values, I'll type in light. And the synonym here will be lamp. I'll add another one. AC. Oh, this should be lamp. And this should be fan. So I've added these two values now and their synonyms. Okay, So go towards intents here. I'm going to click the create button, switch on. And here we have it. Switch on. You can see it at the top right here. And now we need to add some utterances. And that's it. Turn the light on. And it will automatically underline the light here since that is a device. So next up, I'm adding a second utterance to the same one, which is turn the fan on. And press enter. Turn the fan on. Okay. Next up, we're going to create a new intent, which we call switch off. And then in this intent, we're going to add two utterances, turn the light off and turn the fan off. I'll go to intents. And then I'm going to type switch off. Add that as well, and add some utterances. So I've already had this copied. So I'll press enter here and I'll paste it again, but change this one to fan. And again, it recognizes automatically the devices in the sentence there. Okay, so I've added the intents, I've added the utterances. So we're done with the create intents part, and now we're going to train and test our model. So we're going to train the model, and then we're going to test the model, and we're going to copy in some phrases here. So let me just copy one themselves. I'm only going to show you one. But if you're doing the exercise yourself, you can try out the others as well. So let's go back here to the Lewis. And then on the top right, you'll see a button with a red circle around it. Press train. Now, in this case, it will start training the app and starts recognizing the utterances. And that will only take a couple of seconds. Here we are. And now I can actually go to, you see that the green circle, it's now green. Before it was red, so it's now a trained model, and now I can test it right here. I can test an utterance by typing switch the light on. I press enter, and it indeed will find the switch on. So that's good. It works. Great. So let's close this again, and now we will publish the model. And we will configure the endpoints a little bit in the same way that we've done before with the image classification. So we'll publish it. We'll go for a production slot. So it's now published, and now I can go to the Management tab and select the application ID right here. Press the copy button, and I'll need it in this exercise right here. Yeah, let's see here, it will ask me for my Lewis language understanding application ID, so I can just paste this in there. Now, of course, I also need the primary key and the endpoint. In this case, I'll need to go through the portal where I created the Cognitive Services Lewis. I'll go to the resource. And here, if I go to keys and endpoints, it will show me a key and an endpoint. So let's copy this one, copy the key, put it in here. Copying the endpoint, and then pasting it in here. So I now have the application ID, I have the Lewis key, and I have the Lewis endpoint. Okay. Now I can run the cell because it has everything it needs. And let's test our trained language understanding model. So here we are. And now I can enter a command. So I can type turn on the light. and it will turn the light on. I can also type turn off the light, and then the light is off. So again, by training a language understanding model, I can now use that algorithm, use what I trained somewhere else. So we trained it in the Lewis.ai by giving it some utterances, some intents, etc. And now in a different notebook, and this is just a notebook where I'm running a little bit of code where I'm using what I've trained, because I gave it the information it needed, so the application ID, the key, and the endpoint. But you could use it in an application or maybe an app on your mobile phone, anywhere you want. You could use this now. So that's really the power, and it's really easy to create such things. Easy to create a language understanding model. Now, there is also something that we could do is we could add voice control to this. So we can add a cognitive services, and I'm going to create a new one here. So let me create I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to create a cognitive services. Okay, created it. And now I'm going to select, of course, West Europe again. I'm going to give it a name. So let's call it AI Fundamentals Cognitive Services. Let's see if that's still available. It is. Pricing tier, I'll choose the standard. I have understood the notice, and I'll click create. So that will now create my cognitive services. Let me quickly go back to the exercise here. So I have created that, and now I get the key and endpoint for my cognitive services resource. So I go back to the portal. I go towards the resource. And here on the left side, in this panel, I see keys and endpoint. I click on that, and I'll see again my key and endpoint. So I'll copy this, copy the key, go back to the exercise, paste the key in this box of code right here. I'll go towards the portal again, copy the endpoint, I'll tab towards the exercise again. Okay, pasting in the endpoint, and then the only thing that's still there is my region where I have my cognitive services in. And as you already knew this, my location is West Europe. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it in as well, West Europe. Okay, I'll press run. Ready to use cognitive services in West Europe. Okay, well, that's great. So I've added the cognitive services. I already have my trained language understanding model. I'll run this, but it's already there. So it's just for you to see. Oh, it's actually downloading it again. Okay, and it's now installed this custom Python package for cognitive services. So we can use it in this notebook. If you're not familiar with the programming language Python, don't worry, it's not required for this course. Now again, we have a little box of code here that's going to use an audio file and interpret the audio file and then use it on the language understanding model. So the audio file is turn the light on. And it will recognize this and then actually turn the light on. And if you're done with that, I would advise you to go through the other exercises as well. We have an exercise around text analytics, speech, and translation. So really dive into this natural language processing. That brings us to the end of this module. So what did we do? We looked at an introduction of natural language processing, what it is and what it is in Azure. We looked at cognitive services, and the text analytics, speech recognition, translation, and language understanding. With that, let's move on to Module 5. And in this module, we're going to talk about conversational AI. What is conversational AI? And we're going to look at responsible AI guidelines. Remember, folks, when we talked about this in Module 1, responsible AI, well, this also holds for bots, and I think it's an important topic. After that, we're going to look at the services in Azure, the QnA Maker and the Azure Bot Service. But before we dive into that, let's start with conversational AI concepts. Because again, what is conversational AI? Well, conversational AI, builds on other AI workloads, in particular natural language processing, but also a bit of machine learning and sometimes also computer vision. And in general, when people use the term conversational AI, they're referring to bots. About bots, often people associate the term bot with something on like an interface on a website, but it's much more, right? It can be on an email, social media, telephone, and many more examples. And it can also be used in a wide variety of different scenarios, like customer support, right? When asking frequently asked questions, instead of having a resource dedicated to answer those, you could use a bot. So it saves some resources. And of course, if it's a more complicated question, you can always hand it off to a human customer service representative. Another example would be system reservations, cinema tickets, flights, or a table at your favorite restaurant. Digital assistants, right? The voice assistant for in-home, online ordering, your favorite pizza, you can use a bot to order that. But there are also some other types of examples like healthcare, providing an automatic diagnosis based on systems, or office productivity, right? If you work in a large company, you have all these resources, all these corporate resources, and you could use a bot that help you find those relevant resources that you would, for instance, need for a particular task. And there are many more examples. So let's take a look at responsible AI. And I've listed here nine guidelines. So the first is be transparent about the bot, what the bot can and can do. And I think you should develop metrics to assess user satisfaction. Metrics for your bot should cover not only whether the user feels that the bot served its intended purpose, but also the user's sense of well-being and comfort while using the bot. And the second point here is make it clear that the user is communicating with a bot, because it should be apparent to the user that they're not having an interaction with another person. And it's also important that it shows how the bot can help and the limitations associated with its use. The third point here is enable the bot to seamlessly hand off to a human if necessary. Yeah, because you should respect individual engagement preferences. If someone wants to talk to a human instead of a bot, well, that should be respected. Ensure the bot respects cultural norms. And to do that, you can limit the service area for norm violations where possible, and where appropriate, point to a relevant code of conduct for users. You could even apply machine learning techniques and keyword filtering mechanisms to enable your bot to detect, and even critically respond appropriately to sensitive or offensive input from users. Ensure the bot is reliable. And to do that, you can establish reliability metrics. And of course, you should review those periodically and consider what questions your bot needs to answer and rigorously test its performance and ongoing effectiveness. Respect user privacy. And one way to do this is you could inform users upfront about the data that you collect and how it is used, and you can obtain their consent beforehand. And number 7 is handle data securely, because users have every right to expect that their data will be handled securely, right? And you should follow security best practices that are appropriate for the type of data that your bot will be handling. There's, of course, a difference between sensitive and insensitive data, and if the data is personal or not. Ensure the bot meets accessible standards. Bots can benefit everyone, but only if they are designed to be inclusive and accessible to people of all abilities. 9, assume accountability for the bot's action. Developers are accountable for the bots they develop. You as a developer, if you are a developer, you are accountable. Okay, so those are the responsible AI guidelines. And with that, let's go to a small demo here. Let me just copy the link here, and then I'm gonna paste the link in here, and it will take me to this health bot. You can try it out yourself at home by following the same link. Let's scroll down here. You can see Microsoft Health Bot. And if I scroll down here, you can click on try a demo of an example end user experience. So I'm going to click on this, and then it will open the chat, and it will open an introduction of the Contoso Health Bot. Now, the first thing you see is you see that it's already making sure that the user knows that it is a bot. It shows you what it can and cannot do, and it's being transparent. Okay, and at the bottom you can see already, you can ask me things like, my arm hurts, info about diabetes. Well, and during this course we had some examples of diabetes. So can I have some info on diabetes? Okay, and there it is. I get an overview: diabetes mellitus. Occurs when a person's body can't make enough insulin. Okay, and I can click further on this by symptoms or causes. Okay. Well, if I'm satisfied with that, let's do something else. So let's say I have a cold, so my throat. Oh, is it like this? My throat hurts. So it registers the following symptoms, and they're reporting. I can report additional symptoms. Maybe I have a cough. I have a cough. Okay, so sore throat and a cough are registered symptoms. No, there aren't any other symptoms, so I'm going to type none. And now it's starting to assess my symptoms. So how long have I had a cough? Less than 3 weeks. How would you describe your cough? Well, it's a bit of a dry cough. So yeah, dry cough. Okay, submit it. You could see I could also leave it open by not ticking any of those boxes. Have you been diagnosed with asthma? No, I have not. Do you have a fever? No. Does your throat or nose feel itchy or tingly? Let's say yes. And I think this might be because it's asking for instance, allergies. I would assume, at least. Do you have a runny nose? Yeah, okay, let's do that as well. So here's what I said. There's an overview: 33 years, male, initial complaints, sore throat and cough, and then it collects some other symptoms. The suggested self-care is self-care at home, and it's possible causes could be common cold, flu, acute sinusitis, and hay fever. And I expected, based on the questions it asked me, I thought it was also trying to find out if it might be a case of hay fever. So really a health bot you can use to reduce the needed resources to get a diagnosis, and this information then for instance be sent to a doctor. With that, let's head back to the slides. So that was an example of a bot. And let's continue with our second lesson, which is conversational AI in Azure. And remember, I talked about, I mentioned already two services, which was the QnA Maker and the Azure Bot Service. And the QnA Maker it's a cognitive service that enables you to define a knowledge base of questions and answer pairs, and you can create the knowledge base by answering questions and answers, or you can import an existing FAQ, frequently asked questions list. And you can also augment those questions and answers with some built-in chit-chat sources, which include some common conversational exchange, like how are you doing, how is the weather, so you can augment the Q&A. And after creating the knowledge base, you train a model based on those questions and answers, and publish it as a service. And then client applications, and in particular bots, can then consume the knowledge base and use it to determine appropriate responses to user input. So that's the QnA Maker Service. And the Azure Bot Service That provides a platform for creating, deploying, and managing bots. And with the service, developers can use the Microsoft Bot Framework SDK to develop bots and also easily deploy and manage them in Azure. Also, by using the Azure Bot Service, you can easily integrate your bot with, for instance, Azure Cognitive Service like Lewis and QnA Maker, and connect your bot to multiple channels such as web chat, email, or even Microsoft Teams. So those are the two services, and with that, let's now just go and create a bot. So in this exercise, we're going to create a bot. Let me just tab into my Azure Machine Learning Workspace. I'll go to the notebooks right here, and there I will scroll down. I will scroll down to go to the QnA Bot notebook. Here we are at the Conversational AI notebook. I'll scroll down because in this exercise we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to first of all create a QnA Maker knowledge base. We're going to create the Azure resources that we'll need with it, and from there on we'll continue creating everything. Okay, so first of all I'll need to go to QnAMaker.ai. So let me just press a right click here, open a new tab. Do not normally click on it, otherwise you'll lose here, and it will need to reload, which will just take a couple of seconds. So that's something you want to avoid. So it's opening a new tab here in the QnAMaker.ai. Now I can click here at the top, create a knowledge base, and this will give me a multi-step setup to create a knowledge base. First of all, I'll need to create a QnA service in Microsoft Azure. So if I click this, here we are in the create for the QnA Maker. You can see it in the top left, QnA Maker. I have the Azure internal subscription again selected, internal consumption, and I'll check my AI Fundamentals resource group. I'll enter a name, so that is the AI Fundamentals QnA. Let's see if that's already taken. Nope, it's okay. Pricing tier. I will do the standard tier here, since I might have been using the free tier somewhere else already. Okay, now my search location, I'm going to pick West Europe. Again, for you just take I think you can take the free here as well. The app name, I'll leave that as it is, and we'll again choose West Europe for the website's location. I'll disable application insights. That's not something we're going to look at right now. And that's it. So let's verify if it's all correct. And click on create. So now, if everything is in order, if I didn't specify things wrong, it now starts deploying the Cognitive Services QnA Maker. Now, this will take a minute. So meanwhile, let's go back to the exercise. So let's go back to the QnA Maker here. And as soon as it has been created in Azure, we'll need to hit the refresh button. So I'll hit the refresh button. I'll again select the Azure internal subscription and choose the AI Fundamentals QnA. And I can select the language, which of course I am going for English. Okay. Next up, we're going to name my knowledge base and we're going to populate the knowledge base. Now let me just check the exercise here. What kind of name does it want me to choose? So it says Margie's Travel Knowledge Base. Okay, so let's paste it in there. And now it needs some information. I can do all the knowledge base, I can create it manually. But in this case, we are going to use a URL. Which is the URL? It's from the GitHub. Let's write this one. I'll copy this right here. Which is basically a document, a Word document with just some questions and answers. So let me copy this right away and paste the link in here. And then don't forget to click the add button here. So now it is added. Also, just for you here, let me just open it right away. And now you can see that it opens a Margie's frequently asked questions.doc X. Let me open that just to show you what's in there. And here you are, just some really basic questions and answers. That's it. Okay, let's minimize that again. And let's go back to here. So populate, yes, we've added the URL. Chit chat, let's take professional, but you can also, of course, choose something else. So I'm going to click the button. Will not take very long, but here it will create it. And after this is created, we can start creating an actual bot that then uses the question and answer pairs that were in the document, and that uses it through the QnA Maker. So while this is being created, let's quickly continue on. Oh, it's actually already done. But let's quickly go back here and see what else is there to do. Right, so we need to add a QnA pair. So there are already a couple in there, but we're gonna do some others, and then we're gonna save and train and test it. Okay. So let me just add a pair. On the right here, I can see add QnA pair. I'll click on this, so I can just add anything I like. So how is the weather? I could answer something. I could say something like this, and then it's great. Okay, now I can save and train. Again, it only takes a minute because we don't have a lot of questions and answers, so it's quite easy to train, and I can test it. Here I can say, how is the weather? And it will answer me, it is great, etc. Very simple. I could also say something else. Why Margie's travel, and it will give me these things. Okay, so it works. Let's remove this, let's close this, and we have now a trained algorithm and combined with our knowledge base. So let me just go here. I'm going to click on publish. Yeah, sure. Of course, publish. Now this will take a minute, but now it creates an endpoint, so we can use that inside our bot, which is great. And now we can test it inside the portal as soon as it's there. Okay, so it's created, and there's some general information here, and we're gonna create bot here. Click this. Which will open a new, an Azure resource that we can create. Some of the information will already be filled in, and we're gonna just finish it up. So I'm gonna leave as much as the defaults here as possible. I'm not gonna turn application insights on, but I think everything else is correct. So let's just create here, validate the information, and it starts creating the bot. Now, while this is creating, let me just go back here to the exercise. As soon as the bot is created, we can test it. So we can use the test in web chat, which we'll do as well. And then we can go and in the channels page, and we can use the code provided there to actually use the bot inside, for instance, an application, which we're simulating here. Okay. So while this is being created, you can see that it's probably almost done. Here we go. It is done. I'll go to resource. And here I have a couple of things on the left panel that I can do. So test in web chat. And here we have, again, like a box where I can type at the bottom, I can type a message just to test, if this bot is working. So let me just test something here. So how is the weather? There it is. So normally I would wait for the hello and welcome, and then you know that it's working. So I can also say why Margie's travel. And then it will immediately now, see it has started up now, so now it's a lot faster with providing me an answer. Okay, now I can also go to channels, as you should do as well in the exercise. If I click on this, which opens up a web chat, and I can click the edit button right here. Now, here it gives me some key and some embedded code. So let's take a look at what we need in the exercise. Because again, we're going to paste some of the information again in a block of code so we can run it. So if we're here, access the bot through a channel, and we're gonna in the web chat, we're gonna edit, and then we're gonna take the HTML embedded code. I'll show you this, and we'll paste this instead of the embed code goes here, which is actually here in the code below. So I'm going to the fundamentals bot and the embedded code. I'm going to click the copy button. I'm almost clicking a double just to make sure. Okay. And then I'll select this line and I'll paste it. Okay. Now, two things. This creates an iframe for developers out there who know this is just a frame. Just see it as a frame. And it's a little bit big. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the minimum height. Instead of 500, we're going to set it to 200. So it's a little bit smaller. As well as you can see here, basically what it does, it creates a frame and then calls the bot, but it's missing one piece of authentication. It's missing a secret. And that's why here you can see the words your secret here. And I'll need to replace those with the actual secret. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here. And I'm going to see one of these keys. Copy it. Paste it right in there. And then I can just start running this code. So again, it creates an iframe, which is like a frame in a frame. And here you can also see that my chat window and my bot is now up and running right here in this notebook. So I can say something like, hello. And after it has connected, it says hello and welcome. And it answers me. So originally I have to wait, of course, for the hello and welcome, but I'm always like a little bit hasty. So I can say, why Margie? And then it will answer me. So now it gives you don't really need to type the exact sentence, right? You can play with it, and it's intelligent enough to recognize what you're actually what do you want to know. Okay, and that actually brings us to the end of the QnA bot exercise, and that brings us to the end of this course. So let's do a little recap. What have we discussed today? We did 5 modules in total, and we started up with artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? We looked at a definition of artificial intelligence. And in the second part of that module, we looked at responsible AI. Remember the challenges and risks around AI and the 6 principles that we as Microsoft adhere to when we are developing AI solutions. Next up, we talked about machine learning. These 3 broad, these types of algorithms, right? Regression, clustering, and classification. Regression, I used the bike rental, predicting how many bikes I would rent out. For classification, whether a person does or does not have diabetes. And the clustering algorithm, we found groups in a data about flowers. And we used the length of a flower and the number of petals. Then we moved on to the first of these 3 broad topics, right? Computer vision. And we talked about what is computer vision and how do you extract information from a picture. And then we went into the services on Azure. The cognitive services, of course, image analysis, getting a description from a picture. We trained a model. Remember the bananas, oranges, and apples. Thank you. And analyzing faces, form recognizer service, reading text. We all looked at that in computer vision. And then in our 4th module, we looked at natural language processing. Where first we discussed a little bit the word natural, because we have language processing in the form of a programming language like Python, but our own language is less precise. There's typos or there's wordplay in it, and a programming language cannot have that. So we did that, and we talked about these 4 broad topics like text analysis, speech recognition, translation, and language understanding. And then we went into our final module, Conversational AI. Right? We talked about the QnA Maker, we talked about the Azure Bot Service, and at the start we talked about responsible AI guidelines for bots. And as a demo, I showed you around, I showed you a knowledge base and how easy it is to create it or to modify it. And then we had a bot, and we had our chatbot completely ready in the notebook. We played around with it, and you saw how easy it was. Now, there are still some remaining exercises for you to do, and I would really, really, really recommend you to do them. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the day. Thank you for attending this session. And again, there's more ways to learn, right? You can continue on your learning Azure journey. You can go to MS Learn. There are a lot of self-paced offerings there, completely free, and you can just keep on learning right there. Yeah, that's about it. So I really hope you enjoyed today. I wish you good luck on the exam, and happy studying for it.